Hi, my name is Jocelyn Neal, and this is our 11th session in our Melodic Dictation workshop series. Welcome back. Today our main topics will be raised scale degree 3 in a minor key, which is part of our study of chromatically altered scale degrees in melodies. We will talk about techniques for real-time transcription. We will review rhythmic patterns in compound duple meter, especially 6/8. And at the end of the video, as always, we will do a complete melodic dictation. Now, if you haven't done sessions 1 through 10, please hop over and do those, then come back and join us here. As always, you'll need to be somewhere that you can sing out loud, and you'll need some staff paper and a pencil. And if you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, please reach over and do that. Now, one of you asked me, why are we doing so much singing if this is a workshop about dictation and transcription? The answer is that in order to transcribe tonal music well, we need to have a rock-solid map in our heads of the scale degrees and their relationships in a given key. And singing is really an important part of building that map. So let's warm up. We will be in minor today, and here is our key. Solfege a scale, double do on top. 3, 4. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, te, le, so, fa, mi, re, do. Intervals. 3, 4. Major, second, minor, third, perfect, fourth, perfect, fifth, major, sixth, major, seventh, perfect, octave. Major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, minor seventh, perfect octave. Major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major second, major third, perfect fourth. And let's sing our scale in thirds. Here's tonic. 3, 4. Do, mi, re, fa, mi, so, fa, le, so, te, la, do, ti, re, do. Do, le, te, so, le, fa, so, me, fa, re, me, do, re, ti, do. Let's tonicize. Here's our key. 3, 4. Do, mi, so, fa, mi, le, so, ti, do, re, do, ti, do, so, me, do. And we'll stay in that key and do our minor arpeggiation pattern. Do, mi, do, so, le, fa, re, ti, do, te, le, do, fa, do, le, do, re, ti, so, la, ti, do. And let's do our chromatic alterations. We'll stay in the same key. Do, re, mi, fa, fi, sol, la, ti, do, te, le, so, fi, so, fa, mi, re, do. And let's do our chromatic patterns, still in that same key. Do, mi, so, fa, mi, fa, so, fi, so, la, ti, do, te, le, so, le, fi, so, mi, fa, mi, re, ti, do. Let's talk about our altered scale degrees in a minor key. So we're already familiar with our scale degree ladder. We always know where do is. We always know where so is. We know where that tonic arpeggio do, me, so is. And we know where the half steps are in our melodic minor scale. The scale degrees that are likely to be altered in a minor key are raised scale degrees, each of which resolves up to the note above it. So in a minor key, we might encounter raised scale degree 1, that's going to resolve to 2. We might encounter raised scale degree 3, that's going to resolve up to scale degree 4. And we might encounter raised scale degree 4, resolving up to 5. Today, we're especially going to focus on raised scale degree 3. Now, to review, when we are in a minor key, scale degree 3 is a minor third above tonic. When we raise that scale degree, we're now a major third above tonic, we're a half step below the syllable fa, and that raised scale degree 3 with the syllable mi wants to resolve up to fa as a local leading tone. Here are the contexts in which we are likely to find scale degree 3 raised. The first of these is a chromatic passing tone, and here's what that would sound like in a minor key. Scale degree 1, 1, 2, 3, and here's our chromatic passing motion. We also might find it as a lower neighbor to scale degree 4. Here's our key. Fa, mi, fa. We can find a wraparound pattern where so jumps down to mi and resolves up to fa. Here's our key. So, mi, fa. We can find it as passing motion between scale degrees 2 and 4. That was re, mi, fa. And less common, we can also find it arpeggiating from 1. Here's tonic. We might hear do, mi, fa. But again, that's far less common than the other contexts. Now that we know where we are likely to find raised scale degree 3, let's put that in context and do some 2-bar dictation exercises. For each of these, you will be in the key of C minor, and the first note is given for you. We will be working today in bass clef, C minor, and 6/8. Each of these 2-bar excerpts involves a raised scale degree 3. Please use your shorthand notation techniques and work in real time. You will hear each pattern only once. So again, we're in C minor, 6/8, bass clef. Here's our key. Here's our first one, number 1. Number 2. Number 3. For number 4, notice that we have a different starting note. Number 4 begins on scale degree 3. Here's scale degree 3 in context. Here's number 4. Notice that number 5 begins on scale degree 5. Here is scale degree 5 in context. Number 5. And notice that number 6 also begins on scale degree 5. Here's scale degree 5 in context. Number 6. Now let's take a look at the answers. And let's examine which patterns in these short excerpts used raised scale degree 3. In number 1, we had lower neighbor motion, 4 raised 3, 4. In number 2, we had chromatic passing motion from the lowered scale degree 3 through raised scale degree 3 up to 4. Number 3 used a wraparound pattern, 5 raised scale degree 3 up to 4. Number 4 used lower neighbor motion. Number 5 used our wraparound pattern again, 5 raised scale degree 3 up to 4. And number 6 used the ascending passing motion from 2 through raised scale degree 3 up to 4. Now take a look at both excerpt number 5 and excerpt number 6. In each of these instances, we had a raised scale degree 3, but later in the same measure, we had a lowered scale degree 3, so we had to remember to write the accidental in. Here's number 5. And here's number 6. Now let's talk about this idea of real-time transcription. There are lots of different techniques for transcribing melodies out there. Some teachers ask their students to put their pencils down and not write anything at all while the melody is playing. Their idea is that a student should be focusing on memorizing the melody, and if they memorize it, then they effectively get unlimited hearings because they can play it back in their heads as many times as they want while they write it down later. There are lots of good outcomes to practicing this way. You can increase your ability to remember long melodies, you can work on close listening techniques, and it can really benefit you as a listener. However, it's actually not the best technique to use if you're transcribing a melody in a timed situation with limited hearings, like on a test. When we watch professional musicians and teachers do these dictation exercises, almost all of them work in real time, writing down what they're hearing as the recording is playing, and they use shorthand notation to do that. This approach allows them to get as much information recorded on the paper as possible. If they didn't catch a particular note or a set of notes, they're still sketching out if it was a scale or a leap, if it was ascending or descending, and where it landed on the next anchor pitch. And with this technique, they're moving their hand across the paper in real time to the music, so they have a visual and physical sense of where they are in terms of the meter and the 4-bar structure at any moment. Now, your shorthand technique is often going to be either scale degrees or the first letter of your solfege syllables, or just little dots on the staff, and you use spacing to help capture rhythmic information. With all of that in mind, let's practice. Today, we will be in the treble clef with a key signature of 3 flats and a time signature of 6/8. We will be working in the key of C minor, and each of these melodies will be 4 bars long. Each melody will begin on tonic, and each melody will use a very simple rhythmic pattern, quarter note, eighth note, quarter note, eighth note, etc. So we're really focusing on pitch. You'll hear each melody only once. I would like you to transcribe it in real time with your pencil moving along in time to the music, and I would like you to use shorthand notation. You may transcribe this using scale degrees written above the staff. You may transcribe this using the first letter of your solfege syllables if you think more fluently in solfege, or you may use simple dots on the staff itself. But our goal is to be writing down the pitches in real time as they happen. Here's our key. Here's number 1. Number 2. Number 3. And let's look at the solutions. You'll notice here on the screen that I have used scale degree notation above the staff. I have written solfege letters below the staff, and I have shown simple dot notation on the staff. So whichever of those 3 methods you used, it should look something like this. Obviously, you're only using one of the methods, not all 3. And then if we were to go back to this melody, we could interpret this shorthand notation and write out a full transcription. And here is what these melodies would look like in complete notation. Now let's talk about rhythmic patterns in compound duple meter. And for today, we are talking about 6/8. When I hear one measure of compound duple meter, I am imagining that that measure has a direct corollary in physical space on my staff paper. 1 bar of compound duple meter has 2 beats in it. Each of those beats occupies its own space on my staff paper, and each of those beats is divided into 3 equal parts. So when I hear a rhythmic pattern, I am asking myself what notes occupy each beat or each division of the beat, and I'm thinking in patterns. This particular graphic in front of you represents 3/8 notes, a quarter note, and an eighth note. Now, in the rhythms that you are likely to encounter in an AP Music Theory melodic dictation, there are really only 10 different 1-beat patterns that show up. So these are the 10 that we would like to really focus on and make sure that we're very comfortable with. Remember that in these melodies, we do not typically hear syncopation, we do not typically have rests, and we're not going to hear triplets or duplets or other tuplets in these rhythms. So let's read all 10 of these patterns. You may read on a neutral syllable, or you can join me on takadimi. Ta da ta ki da ta da ma ta di da ta di da ma ta ki di da ma ta ki di da ta ki da ma ta va ki da ta. And now let's do some 1-bar rhythmic transcriptions. Grab some staff paper and get set up in 6/8. Each of these rhythms will be exactly 1 bar long, and you will hear each of them exactly once. You should be working in real time to transcribe these rhythms as you hear them and think about patterns. Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. And let's take a look at the answers. And as you look at these rhythms, think of them as one-beat patterns or as a combination of 2 one-beat patterns in each bar. Now it's time to grab some staff paper and do a full melodic dictation. For today, we will be working in the bass clef. We will have a key signature of 3 flats. We will have a time signature of 6/8, and we will be listening to a melody that is 4 bars long, so we can go ahead and set up our paper accordingly. This will be played on a trombone, and as always, there will be no rests in this melody. Before we begin working, we also notice that we are given the first pitch, which in this case will be the note C3. There's no stem on that pitch, so our first task will be to make sure we put a stem on that note to represent the correct rhythm. Before our first hearing, we're also going to look at that first note and that key signature and write in the key that we'll be working in. In this case, that's going to be C minor. I also want to remember that if I'm in a minor key, at all times I need to be watching scale degrees 6 and 7 so that I can make appropriate adjustments for ascending and descending lines. And I want to look at the 4th bar and take a guess as to what the most likely last pitch will be and write that in as well. Now we're ready for our first hearing. Okay, on that first hearing, we noticed that the last note was an octave above the first note of this melody. This is sometimes the case on the AP exam. We always want to be listening for that. So I'm going to write my last note in the last bar, in the middle of that last bar, as a dotted quarter note on the pitch C4. And I also have my opening gesture, which is from scale degree 1 up to scale degree 3. And I noticed that my approach to tonic at the end was a raised scale degree 7. Here's our second hearing. Okay, let's add a little bit more information. We noticed on this hearing that the chromatically altered pitch occurred in the end of measure 2. And I also heard anchor pitches in measure 3, which are very helpful. I heard a scale degree 5 jumping up to a high scale degree 1. Here's our next hearing. Let's go ahead and do our fourth and final hearing. Here it is. And let's work through our melody. Here's our key. We opened with an arpeggio up to scale degree 3. And from there, a scalar descent. So we can write that in. Scale degree 1 up to 3. And then we came down a scale. 2, 1, raised scale degree 7. We're always watching for those raised scale degree 7s. That raised scale degree 7 goes back to tonic, and we arpeggiated up through scale degree 3 to a lowered scale degree 6, which then stepped down to scale degree 5. Let's listen to that much. Do, mi, re, do, ti, do, mi, le, sol. From there, we had a wraparound pattern with a raised scale degree 3 at the end of measure 2, which resolves up to scale degree 4. From scale degree 4, we had a skip of a third and a return back to scale degree 4. This was followed by a step up to scale degree 5 and a leap up to scale degree 1. From there, we came down a scale, and I definitely heard that descent from 1 through lowered scale degree 7 and lowered scale degree 6 down to scale degree 5 in measure 4. And then I heard an ascending scale up scale degree 6 through scale degree 7 and cadencing on a high tonic. So we used a raised scale degree 6, raised scale degree 7, up to tonic ending. You'll notice that when I am writing the pitches on the staff, I'm using a natural sign to indicate the raised scale degree 6 and 7. When I am talking in the abstract about the scale degrees and writing those above the staff, I'm using a sharp to indicate raised from its natural minor state. So there are some scalar passages in here. We heard a descending scale in measure 1 from scale degree 3 down to 1 to a raised 7. And then we talked about the scalar passages at the end. One of the trickiest spots in this melody is the arpeggio at the beginning of measure 2 as we are leaping up from scale degree 1 through 3 all the way up to 6. And our raised scale degree occurs at the end of measure 2. Let's sing the melody. Here's tonic. 4, 5, 6. Do, mi, re, re, do, ti, do, me, le, so, mi, fa, le, fa, so, do, te, le, so, la, ti, do. Let's make sure we're watching for those skips of a third, which we can hear as arpeggiating. There's one at the beginning. We heard the skip of a third embedded in that arpeggio. We heard the descent from scale degree 5 down to raised scale degree 3 as a wraparound pattern heading to 4. We heard the third skips between 4 and lowered scale degree 6 at the beginning of measure 3. Now let's look at the complete melody. We'll sing it one more time and then hear the recording. Sing it with me. Here's tonic. 4, 5, 6. Do, me, re, do, ti, do, me, le, so, mi, fa, le, fa, so, do, te, le, so, la, ti, do. And here's the recording. Thanks for watching.